So, many people may have watched this video, and a lot of beginner Monopoly players will probably stumble upon this video by Domenic Murgo, aka Monopoly Players, a strategy video about Monopoly for some more advanced Monopoly strategy. I'll go ahead and play the video for you, but I think that he leaves out some information that would be very useful for newer players. And I think that some of the things he says are not 100% accurate. So I'll go ahead and play the video, and then I'll explain to you what I think I would do in these scenarios.
So this is the board state. If I don't make a trade here, I'm going to get smashed. I know I like to smash others, but I need to act, and I need to act quickly here. There's a lot of trades that can go down that do not involve me, and I'd be in trouble. So what am I thinking at this exact moment in time? Well, number one, I want to try to get that third yellow. How can I get that third yellow? Heck, at this point, I'd give up almost all of my other properties to get that yellow. I'll offer Baltic, Indiana, North Carolina to try to get that yellow. It gives them a monopoly. They have a few random properties. If they don't want to do that, well, it's always important to have other ideas in mind. Let's take a look at my opponent here to my left. They have the greens. Maybe they're interested in my green. I don't care about giving up a monopoly if I can get a lot of assets back. So I'll give up the crappy green monopoly. Maybe I'll get these two purples and the light blue back. Ideally, I get the light purples and the oranges. If you're giving someone a third piece for a monopoly, you want to get something really good back in return. To my other opponent here, what am I looking to do? They have two railroads. Maybe they want a third railroad. Maybe they want my red here. Now, they don't really have much that I could use, but at the same time, my goal is to break up this board state. This orange could go here. I need to make something happen, and I need to make it happen now. So I'm going to instantly offer my railroad to this gentleman here to my right. Across the way, I'm going to offer Baltic, and then to my opponent here, I'm probably going to offer North Carolina. The bottom line is, if I don't do anything, these people are going to trade with each other, and I'm going to be stuck out in the cold.
So that was a lot of information to take in, but you can break it down by really looking at what the most important trade that is currently possible is on this board. And in my opinion, that trade would be the trade between the player whose perspective we have in this video, this player with the two reds, the orange, and the pink, and the trade between this player here, the player with the two pinks, the two oranges. Really, the other properties aren't even important, because the fact is that right now, these players have a 1-to-1 trade for two of the most valuable color groups in the game right now, the oranges and the pinks. If they're smart, then they will immediately suggest a trade between the two of them so that they can sort of crush the other two players in this game. So, optimally, if you were this player right here, you'd be wanting to maybe get the oranges or the pinks. It really just depends on the board position and how much money you can get from your opponent if he does, in fact, want to take the pinks, or excuse me, the oranges. You know, sometimes it's worth it to take the pinks over the oranges if your opponent is willing to overpay for that. But that's a very easy trade to note. You know, most people should be able to see this trade. And if your opponents, these two players, do in fact see that trade, and they see the potential for that, then you're in trouble as the player over here. And so what you want to do is you want to try to make sure that this trade can't happen. First of all, you have to hope that your opponents are not paying very close attention. Because if they are paying close attention, then you just will have no way to really get into this game that well. The main thing you're going to want to do is to try, if they're not paying attention, to make sure that you get one of these cards, the orange and the pink, from this player here. What I would do is I would actually, instead of offering the railroad, I may try to offer the railroad, but against a good player, the red would be a far more valuable prospect. They would want this red from you. And so what I would do immediately when I realize this trade opportunity has presented itself, I would turn to this player to my right and say, hey, would you like my red? Since I'm giving you the first color group, you're going to be crushing the game, I'd offer a crazy offer. I mean, maybe they say yes. I don't really know who this player is, so I'd test the waters by saying, okay, I'll take all of your other properties and $200. Now, it's very unlikely they're going to take that deal. But you don't need them to take that deal. All you need them to do is to either Optimally, you'll want to get one of these cards. I mean, just getting one of the dark blue, the orange, or the pink will break up this problem situation that you're in. The orange and the pink are a little bit more important to get than the dark blue. But you definitely want to get one of those cards. So optimally, the best thing you could do, if you can get him to give you these two cards for the red, then you're in a tremendous position. Because that basically puts you in a similar position to what this guy was in. Now, I don't think your position would be as powerful because this dark blue, as soon as you sell him the red, he could sell this dark blue to this player for money. So that's something you're going to have to be worried about. If you can get him to give you the dark blue, you're in a really tremendous position. If you can get him to give you these three cards, the dark blue, the orange, and the pink, you're in an amazing position because that means you can immediately trade this player up here. He has the two pinks, the two oranges. You can get one of those color groups, and then if you ever need money, you can turn to this player and say, hey, I'll sell you the dark blue, or I'll sell you the two yellows. And neither of them will really have that opportunity to trade to that player. So you'll be in a crushing position if you manage to get those three cards for that red. So that would be the most important thing I would look at. And really, that is the most important thing going on. Now, if they don't if he doesn't accept that, if he just will not take the red for any of these cards, then another important thing would be to, just like he says earlier in the video, try to trade. I mean, he suggests this. When he suggests the trade that he does to the player to the left, he suggests giving them North Carolina, the green property, which would give him the green color group in exchange for the two pinks and the two oranges. Now, that would obviously be insane. You know, you turn to them and say, hey, I'll give you the green. I want this two pinks and the two oranges. If you can do that, then you're golden. You're in a great position to win the game because now you can obviously do a similar trade over here with this player down here. And, you know, the trade that Domenic mentions in the start, where he tries to offer the brown to this player across from him for the yellow. The problem is, though, that this player, if he is a smart player, will not accept that because the browns are just not that powerful. He's going to want to get at least quite a bit more from you. He may even not want to trade with you at all if you're not giving him a good enough color group. And so another thing to worry about is if you do that trade with this player and you do wind up with the first color group, you still have to worry about these two players with the pinks and the oranges. The pinks and the oranges are better than the yellows, generally. And so unless you have a lot of money and you're confident that your yellows are going to crush those oranges and the pinks, you're still not safe, even if you manage to get that trade to go through. Especially if you give away a lot of your properties or money, you're still in trouble. And so I think the most important thing here, again, is those pinks and the oranges. I think that's what you really need to focus on in this scenario. And again, if your opponents are good, they're going to trade the oranges and the pinks between the two of them. Now, let's say they do go ahead and trade the oranges and the pinks between the two of them. What do you do now? Well, now you have really, I think, three options. If they do this trade here, where basically one of them winds up with the pinks and the other one winds up with the oranges, what you want to do now, if this guy still has both the reds, you want to try to get those two reds from him. Offer him basically anything. I mean, at this point, you're just trying to get them. He's most likely going to want money so he can build on his oranges or his pinks. If he already has a lot of money, you're probably in a lot of trouble. But you want to get either these two reds or this dark blue. The dark blue would help you as well, because once you get this dark blue, you'd have a trade you could do with the player across from you so that you could either get the dark blues yourself or you could get the yellows yourself. So you'd basically say, hey, I'll give you my dark blue, you give me the yellow, or you could do it the other way around, say, hey, I'll give you these two yellows, you give me your dark blue. You'd both be able to get a color group. So somehow you'll want to get this dark blue or these two reds. Optimally, the two reds would be the best, again, because you wouldn't have to give this guy anything. So if you could get the two reds from this guy, that would be your next best shot in the game. But of course, it's going to be really tough. At this point, you're going to have to give him a lot of money. But the problem is that you're going to need money to win the game if you do have two players with the oranges and the pinks. I mean, if you get a color group and you're not going to have money to build on it, and two other players already have a bunch of money and they're building hard on their color groups, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So when you're in this scenario, it's a really tough spot. I'm really not entirely sure if it's possible for you to win realistically if they do, in fact, go ahead and do that trade. I mean, you can win, of course, with luck, or if the other players make some mistakes in their trades. and give you, for example, the reds too cheaply. But you're going to be in a very crushed position. You have one other option, though, and that other option would be to... I'd say actually you have two other options. So one other option you could do is you could try to get this light blue. It would put you in a similar position. You could say, hey, I'll give you the light blues for that yellow, or the other way around. So getting that light blue would be important. Now, if neither of these players want to trade with you, which they likely won't if they have a lot of money between them. If each of them can get 9 or 10 houses on the pinks and the oranges, they're likely not going to want to trade for a little bit. And so what you could do, you could try to convince this player across from you that that essentially that he's going to have no other way into this game. Try to convince him to take the browns. Give him everything else, but literally give him your brown, your red, your green, your light blue, your railroad. Just ask for this yellow. You might even give him money. If he'll give you the yellow, you're in an okay-ish position because you're going to have a color group. He's going to have the browns now, but the browns aren't that powerful. They're probably not going to win him the game. But you want to frame it to this player as if he has no other option in the game. He's really screwed out of the game if he doesn't do this. If this player's smart, if he hears you doing that, he'll offer to sell him the dark blue. So, I mean, you could get in some trouble with that. Oh, and then one other option, of course, would be to try to buy these greens. Now, the problem is that the greens are not a very powerful color group. They're pretty terrible. So you optimally want to avoid having to take the greens. But if you have to take the greens, if no one will trade with you any other way, take the greens. I mean, you'll have no real other shot in the game. So I think that this exact framework that I've put this scenario into should help you understand how you want to think about every scenario in Monopoly. You constantly want to be looking for any sort of obvious trades there are, and you want to break up those obvious trades. Now, if your opponents are not paying attention, they'll potentially give you the opportunity to do this. But if they are paying close attention, it's going to be really tough for you to get into this game. So yeah, I think that's basically all I had to say about this scenario. I think that this will give a little bit more depth into the discussion. So yeah, thanks for watching.